Can you go at it's like you can render that.
Yes. Sorry to take too long.
Do we need to do anything specific or just do we need to how do you use OBS?
Oh no, I already started.
Okay. Do you need to do anything? If students wanted to do this group screen in their computer study.
Oh yeah, I have a link for the student. So do I have to send to the
Yeah, maybe we can.
Someone said Superman.
Can I sign out of this? Can I sign out? Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem. So maybe I just send to your email address.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it on my students, so I will be able to do it. I'll be back in
Yeah, they do. They're like ordering coffee. They kind of ask. You got it, Kat. Ah, no! Where's my hand?
Yep.
Do you need to throw your tablet out, or do you have a visit thing?
I don't know.
Does it do anything?
Oh no, it's not even. I can just. I think this is probably easier because I don't have to like adjust to anything.
No, absolutely not. You know, just plug it into the phone there.
Oh, we're not using the same.
No, we're not using this thing. When you started, you wanted to go.
We want to find blender.
Try just type in blender. Oh,
I'll try and get her on his face.
It might work if I just. Oh, here. Oh, sweet. I don't even get some of that. That's good. Don't need to see that.
try your double tap.
Yeah, I'll just map it. Oh, cool. I thought I was gonna have to. I thought I was gonna have to set everything up again, but all the big ones I already did. Support tablet not found in the system.
Lena, it's been brewed. What about that little Intuos? It's just that the BNB doesn't share the same drivers as the Cintiqs, whereas the Intuos does. You know the Intuos that you came and got?
Yeah. Do you want to try Intuos?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I mean, that's more what you're used to.
Yeah, yeah.
No problem, but their drivers sometimes.
She's the only one that's legit. But I think that might be on purpose.
Yeah, sure. I can just.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't fit.
Yeah.
No, I just use them.
I've got a list of
Good work.
It's just installed. I'll just map it to the switch.
Yeah, I just come on. It's Lisa.
I do apologise, Josh, for not having that organised. I certainly didn't scope it out very well.
That's all good.
And if you come back, I will make sure that it's A1.
Cool. Alright, yeah, I'll start.
We don't need to do anything with the
It's already running.
Cool guys, so we have Josh from Scarlet City Studios today. So please welcome him. He's going to be talking about capturing workflow for his company and just showing a little bit of a demo as well. If you wanted to follow along on your screen, log into Moodle and there's going to be a link to the YouTube channel. I think showing what's happening on Josh's screen as well. You are also free to follow along with him on your computers if you wanted to hand paint something.
Yeah, I do have an OBJ.
I'm not sure how to.
Do you guys
give
have
them
like a
access to
shared
that.
folder or something?
Yeah, if you give me
It's
Was there a camera? Oh, yeah, I see.
And then the heads will leave.
I mean, I could always just. I'll just put it on Google Drive. Would that help? If I share that, like,
Maybe once you get that,
Because it's going to be shared. Should I just Facebook?
we've got it anyway, so. But you could just send them a link to the live stream. We've sent it to you, you get it in the thing. And just click on the thing.
I think that's.
We've sent it to you.
I just have looking off this I don't do that anymore. And my flew out weekly in my face. And like just like really like one part of the blade like face. And I just kind of stood there holding it like this is the worst. This my knives
Don't tell anybody else and tell anybody. One by one. That way they can come back up.
Cool, guys, I believe it's supposed to be an overview now. So we'll just start,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. How's it? Yeah, my name's Josh. Work at Scarlet City Studios. They do a sort of a hand-painted style, like wood of Woolcraft and torchline, stuff like that. And that's like my jam. That's just what I'm into, really. So the plan for this is to sort of zoom through like this boring slide stuff and then just crank into painting. So I'll just sort of go through these obligatory slides. Yep, so I'm from Hamilton. Anyone from Whakachane? No? Anyone? No? It's a great place. It's pretty cool. I went to Hamilton's Fraser High School. That's the principal there. He was fired for fraud, but it was an alright school. I like cats. Those are my two cats down the one. So yeah, I guess a bit about me, super quick. Grew up in Hamilton, came to Auckland when I was about 18, 19, studied at Netcol. Wasn't really serious about it at all. And it sort of took me like moving back to Hamilton and working a job that I didn't really like to return back and study more. So went to MDS, met Lena, a bunch of other cool people. And while I was there, I did like a 8-month sort of stint at Custard Square, which is a small studio in Kingsland. That was pretty cool. It was all for the exposure or whatever, so didn't get paid for it, but it was quite like invaluable, like the time there, just working in the studio and bouncing off other sort of creative people. I finished up, and it was about a 7-month break between I finished media design school and I landed my job at Scout City. I do mostly texture painting and stuff like that, and modeling. That's sort of my job there. I'm like the environment guy, so I'll make all the trees and like grey box levels and paint nice rocks and stuff like that. Sometimes I get to do buildings and other things, do a bit of animation as well. But yeah, this project here that I'm gonna sort of go to and from, I did it as like a Sketchfab test, because Sketchfab is like pretty cool to like preview your models and other people preview them. So that was the goal, like my outset. I'm just gonna do like a real tiny post-mortem about this, and then one that I'm working on now, which is, I guess, just to show if you scope things properly and not start with like a very vague concept of a tree, like that really ugly concept. I just wanted a tree or something. That was like it, really. I didn't really know what I was sort of building. And so that took like months, because my motivation just sort of dwindled and like, I didn't even know what I was doing really. I was just playing around. It ended up looking, this was like the final product. So I sort of modeled and textured all of this inside Blender, and my approach to it was just, I wanted to be like smart about like UVs and stuff and save myself time painting, but I also wanted to get a bit of lighting direction. So I've done some sort of tricky things with the UVs, I guess. Some of them are weird, like this guy, for example. He's mirrored on both sides. Like if I was to paint on this guy, if I was to paint here, it's going to appear there. Cool stuff like that. Like that saves you a lot of time. And I did sort of tricky things like it's like modeling to a texture. So originally, like I just sort of paint this stuff, and then if I can see like a crack or something like that that I can pull out, I'll do that because it changes up the silhouette. And so even though this is mirrored, I don't know, the silhouette's like slightly different, just to try and make it look not so samey. I do that stuff a lot. Same with like these gravestones, they're all mirrored. Anyway, I'll get back to my slides. Yeah, so I started this. The scope was a bit crazy, and well, there wasn't really any. And so I was just asking people that work for ideas, like how I could finish it, what I could sort of put in. There's like a point I find, like when you're working on stuff, you just have to just stop. Like you just have to stop putting so much labor into it, because sometimes you can overwork things, and that's sort of, I don't know, you sort of get stuck in like a limbo of just overworking the same stuff. So it's good to sort of put a break on things and just put it out there. This was my new project I started. This I started about a month ago, and I've probably done like maybe a week, if I was adding all the time together, probably a week. And because I sort of planned it out and had a bit more of a scope of what I wanted to do, like I'm already at this point, so I'm sort of blocking out colours and stuff, just trying to get the feel down. And with this, I wasn't so crazy on UVs because I wanted to practice painting like light information and stuff. So like this isn't mirrored. A bunch of other things aren't mirrored. I didn't go as crazy. Like at work, I guess I go pretty crazy with UVs because it has to be optimized for games and stuff. Like when you're working on games, you want to use as much texture space. You want to get as much texture space as you can. And so you do that by mirroring information and stuff like that, and also forcing UVs into like squares. Like, actually, this is a good example. I'm going to retexture this guy towards the end. I just cranked this guy out last night, and lots of this is like forced into squares, just to make the most of the UV space. There's a nice plugin in Blender called UV Squares, I think it's called, but yeah, great name. That just forces UVs into squares, so like when I unwrap this stuff naturally, it's got like a awkward curve, and when you're trying to pack a UV as dense as you can, you can't really achieve that unless you're forcing your things into squares. Also, like, because I'm painting on the model directly, my UVs don't matter so much, like if they're forced into squares, because I can still decide where I'm going to put that information. Anywho, yeah, new project. So the sort of pipeline I go through when I paint, there's no, I guess, wrong or right way, but it's definitely easier if you sort of start big and then go small. So start with like huge brush strokes, block out your colors, sort of get your colors and your values like really down before you start laboring in like finer detail and stuff, because it just tends to get a bit messy, and then because you've gone in and focused on the small details, you want to go back and rework it, and I don't know, you sort of, when you paint in Blender, you can do it in lots of other programs too. Blender's really good though. It's sort of, you don't have a layer system, so every stroke, like, you really learn to make every stroke count. So often what I'll do, like once I've done this color block out, I'll save that off, and then I'll go full sort of crazy with details and stuff. And if I don't like that, if I've made like a decision, I don't know, this circle wasn't circle enough, it's not even a circle, but I can go back quite easily from the base point and start it again. So yeah, painting, I sort of practice, like when I go through and paint this thing, I'm gonna try, I'll just sort of be rambling, I guess, and saying what I'm thinking, but it's all practice, like sort of learning materials, what sort of values they exist in, what like saturation certain things should have. Like, so for example, stone, I mean, it can have a high value range. Let's go back there. One second, where is this going? Yeah, so like, it has a high value range, but as opposed to metal, like, it's not as contrasty in like shadows and stuff. So like when you're painting metal, you want to sort of think about the environment it's in and what it's reflecting. So if I was painting, so like this guy here, I've been putting highlights with yellow because he's reflecting the flame. And even this guy, like, he has a little bit of like yellowy green sort of kicking around. And he's also got it like in this shadow, there's like a little bit of reflection I've pumped up here. So that's like the main difference between those materials. Like stone, I don't know, it's a lot more subtle, and like when you learn the difference, it's really cool because you can sort of go in and start defining surfaces how you want them. So like wood, for example, has quite a low, yeah, wood it has like a low like sort of value range between when the values like right next to each other. So you wouldn't sort of pick like a 0.2, which if I'm saying like 0.2, like 0, I'm saying black, 1 white. So like 0.2 is like quite a dark grey. I wouldn't crank that guy on wood and then put like a 0.8 value difference right next to him, because it's going to start looking just way too contrasted and blown out a little bit, if that makes sense. I'll sort of be rambling on about this while I'm painting anyway, just like what's sort of going through my head. But this is sort of like the thing, like if you wanna like practice hand painting and stuff, it's always good to know this and like practice it, because and then showing this in your like portfolio, like I'm all for this stuff, and if you can do it, or if you like been practicing it, definitely crank it in there, because it shows that you have a sort of understanding of how materials should work, if that makes sense. So yeah, this is like, there are lots of tricks you can do when I start, and I've got this ready for when I start. So like what a good thing to do if you want like a real easy like top-down lighting, like right from the start, is you crank out an object normal map, which you take that into Photoshop and you flip the green channel, sometimes it's a blue channel, and you overlay that, and it gives you, if you can see here, I've got some like, I mean it's not great, but it's a good starting point to overlay it over my flats. Like it does a little bit of the work for me. I can sort of pick values off here and roll with that, sort of knowing, I don't know, yeah, it's a good start, it's a good start. Yeah, this is more, I'm going to go through this when I paint, so I might just skip there. It's just blocking out colours, starting big, going small. Integrating textures, yeah, I'll try to do this. So basically it's more of the same, like make every stroke count. So I'm not sure if you can see, I don't know, you might be able to see it. When I paint, like I try to make the strokes work into texture, surface texture for me. So yeah, I'll explain that when I paint it. Yeah. Blending modes. Yeah. So often, like towards the end of the pipeline, towards the end of the paint, there are some cool sort of things you can do with different brush blending modes, and like this sort of like transfers to not just Blender, but like most, like Photoshop has these same brush blending modes. So like overlay, it's quite a subtle difference, but looking on this grass, actually, I'll just demonstrate it super quick. Overlay and add, I'll just demonstrate that super quick. Add I use a lot. Basically it's like a reverse multiplier. So like if you know how multiply works, basically it takes this value, like when you use multiply, you want to start high, because it's just going to shoot your value and your saturation right down. So add sort of does the opposite. So it's really good if you're like painting in highlights or like tiny little hot spots on textures and stuff. I'll just show you that super quick. There we go. And this guy. Yeah, at work we primarily use Blender, just because it's free, and I don't want to say we're cheap, but it's really good. Like I find myself, it's going to be a pain. I've fixed this before. Anyway, yeah, this is add, so like it's really good. You can, if I open up this guy here, and that's the wrong color wheel. That's better. So like if I pick this guy, he's starting like a mid saturation, low value. And this is usually where you want to start with like an add brush, because if I go like this, just change the curve from soft to, it's going to be like a hard brush. This is like just where it sort of falls off. Like this, for example, if I wanted the lighting to come from this side, I would pretty much just crank over some crank over some add. Right, yeah, okay, that's cool. Go back to your standard mix brush, and then by trying to make texture from just brush strokes, I'll try to think of like, I don't know, like a sort of stylistic pattern it might have. So I might just like blob in some sort of random shapes here, and I can go back with a smaller brush and define these more. But that's pretty good, I think. I'm not 100% sure if this pen pressure is working, but that's alright. That's pretty good anyway.
Is it the circles? Is the pressure not working?
Yeah, I think the pressure's like a bit. It seems like it's just like full on, but that's alright. Yeah. So like with this, like I can already start to see shapes that I might want to pick out and define like a little bit more. So like I'll come in here with like a smaller brush and just, I don't know, just go crazy. When you're doing this, like you don't really want to think about it. Like the less you sort of think about it, the more natural that it's going to come off. So that's like learning, I guess, just the painting pipeline and what materials should sort of look like what. But this here, take that, it's a bit strong. Anyway, that's Add. Add is like a super cool brush. I use it almost all the time. I mean, I wouldn't paint without the Add brush because it's really good. Overlay as well. It's pretty cool. Maybe this one here. Like if I wanted some of this yellow light to come over, you sort of, with overlay, you want to set it quite desaturated because it's going to multiply color over like hardcore, like it's just going to go for gold, and you can get like a super saturated mess. So you sort of want to, if I'm using overlay, like I'll change this guy to a soft brush and probably crank the strength down like a lot and just very sort of gently select the right object, you know, paint on the right object. Yeah, so you're gonna notice like quite a huge difference. I'm not sure that the pen pressure is like working 100%, so I'll just crank it down like even more. So this is like real sort of, this is like final stages of texture. Like this is what I'd do if I wasn't quite happy with the color over here. I'd just come over with like a real soft overlay brush and crank that, because like overlay lets you retain these values, but I can sort of drastically change the color information, and that's super handy. Because if I was just to, I don't know, there's a color mode. Color can sometimes work. Overlay is more for if you want it to be a brighter, sort of nicer saturated color. Color is another blending mode. Like if I wanted to change this to red, I don't know why I do this, but I can do that. It's gonna keep the values underneath, but you're gonna lose like a lot of color information. Like I'm just painting this all like one shade of red, and it's not too interesting. But if I was to do that and then maybe come back to overlay, this might look sort of cool. Maybe give it like yellow highlights. That's still sort of not that great, but maybe just color. Yeah, you always want, like when you're painting, You can sort of plug any color anywhere. Like there's no like rule. Like for example, I'm painting like bluey greens on stone, stuff like that. Like painting metals outright green. Like no raw metal is naturally green. I think it's always sort of inherited from its reflective value. So yeah, I'm just gonna finish these slides because I'm getting a bit carried away. I want to get painting the shield. UV tips. Yeah, so this is this trick here I use quite a bit. Basically, like I mirrored, as I was saying earlier, like I mirrored this big rock, but then I actually cut away this portion because I wanted to paint some lighting information on this tree. I'll show you what I mean. This guy here. If I mirrored this grass space, it's gonna look weird because this tree here isn't symmetrical, and so I wanted to paint a shadow that sort of followed this mouth a little bit, and I just wasn't going to achieve that mirroring this whole top grass piece. So this has been like my UVs can get sort of funky. Sometimes, like if I'm working on a model and I've unwrapped it and I chuck it to one of my workmates, sometimes I have to sort of just let them know what I've done because I get carried away sometimes. Like this guy is all separate, so if I paint on here, and I only do this because I can paint directly on the model, see it cuts out on the side there. So all of this I can make unique. All this space in here is like unique texture space, and everything on the outside is mirrored again. I think even, yeah, if I trace a line around here, you can sort of see, I think the whole back side, yeah, most of it's sort of unique around this big portion. So I do that quite a lot. Like that's super handy. Also, when you model the texture, like I think that's the next slide possibly. Here's another thing I did it with, this pumpkin face guy. There's another way that like you can be smart about UVs and just maximizing texture space. These guys, I think I got them separated out. These guys here, if I look at the texture, they all exist on one texture space, and almost everything on them is shared except for the face. So I just was a savage guy with my UVs and just cut their face off, like just straight up, like, yeah, there you go. So I cut it down there and here, which means that like I can model like a few. I could go more extreme. I could do this if I wanted a different face, then I would duplicate it again and like shrink this guy down. But because this, I've given it so much space. Like I think this guy is, I don't know, like a 256 or something super small that doesn't really take up memory, which means that like I could come in and like straight up draw a face. This pumpkin, if I wanted to do another face, everything's okay. Yep, it's a happy pumpkin. I could have done that, but I don't know, I just wanted one sort of guy smiling up there. That's when I used to, like, before I started working at Scarlet City Studios, I really used to not enjoy UVing. Like, it was sort of a means to me, it still is, but when you can sort of control like what you're going to do a lot more and think about where you want to sort of put seams, and since I'm painting directly on the model, I can go pretty crazy with this, and I can have like unique sort of UVs. It sort of makes it fun. Like I do enjoy UVing now. Like I never thought I'd say that, but it's alright. Like I think I mirrored the back too, I think. So like this is mirrored, which is just, I don't know, just because I could. I mirrored this side with that side, and then yeah. This is another thing I could go through. Modeling to texture, which is something cool you can do. You can pull a lot out of the same texture. Like, for example, these stone pieces here, if I was to paint on these, they share the same texture with a random chunk. I think this guy right here. Just swap this guy back. Yeah, so if I go like that, yeah, it's gonna appear here. So basically what I did is I sort of painted this rock in, and I was like, hey, that could possibly be a small rock I could sort of bastardize and just put wherever I want. And so I did. I just straight like ripped it off the model and duplicated it around a couple of times just to, I don't know, integrate the stone stairs a little bit more with the ground. Doing stuff like that is like quite cool, really fun, and you can get away with a lot. Like if you've got like a tileable texture, like roof shingles or something like that, you can go in and model to the shingles, give them different like silhouettes. So on the edges, you can like pull it out, and it makes it look not so mirrored and not so like tileable. Like it really helps break it up if you can pull around the model to the texture, which is something I learned off one of my workmates. It's really good. Like so for example, when I painted this dude, I didn't have like this. I think, pretty sure some of these things like I didn't pull out until like afterwards. I came in and I was like, oh hey, it'd be cool if this guy was like a little bit more chunky and I could pull him out, and I could, because yeah, cool beans. Same with like I think I modeled this differently. Yeah, anyway, I'll move on. Yeah, cool. Yeah, this is the end, and then shield, yeah. Yeah, so hand painted all day. It's just me. I'm just a big fan of hand painted texture, and I just like to try push it. I mean, I'm still learning, so whenever you paint, it's always good to like pull up reference of like a style that you're trying to achieve, or like a look that you're trying to get, and sort of apply your knowledge of materials to that. Tailor to suit like your portfolio. I put in a few like hand painted things, and I guess I just had a willingness to want to sort of grow in that, so that helped a lot. When you're applying for things, definitely like if you're gonna go apply for a job at Grinding Gear Games, I would have maybe one or two, maybe just one hand painted thing, but you'd want to tailor it more to their sort of gritty, realistic style, just to show that you can emulate it. So definitely tailor like your portfolio to suit the places you're applying. And the ode to Rick Astley, yeah, just never give up. Like if you don't land something straight away, like definitely keep doing like 3D or animation or anything like that. Any like creative pursuit. Like it's I put this picture up. This was before I got my job, I think. This was like my hand painting level, which was, I mean, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just sort of didn't really understand what I was painting. I just sort of put some random stuff on. I had no understanding really, and I thought that was pretty neat. And then just working and painting every day next to other creative people and being able to bounce off other creative people. And also having like, I think it was like a month after I started, this pro texture dude who was like an art lead at an outsourcing company in China was hired like the month after me. And I remember like he walked through. A good thing to have is like iron skin, like just throw your stuff out there and let it be picked apart. I remember he walked through and he sort of looked at what I was doing, which is like this level. And he was like, man, is this like the skill level of this company? Like this guy's not very good. And I mean, like, we talk about that because it's sort of funny, but I mean, like, yeah, definitely like, learn to develop like an iron skin to your art. Like if you think your art is the best it can be, maybe show it to someone with like a fresh eye, and they might sort of pick up something, I don't know, that you could apply to it. So working with this guy, like, sort of, it was really good because he would show me lots of things, and he would just straight up tell me where I was going wrong, and it helped me really sort of develop and just learn. Yeah, I guess that's that little slide thing done. But I'm pretty keen. I modelled and teached this guy last night actually. I was gonna paint over like a scene, but I thought if I did like a random, I don't know, simple sort of shield or something, or weapon, and supplied the OBJ, you guys could like practice on or whatever. So I'm gonna start from scratch. Like for this guy, I painted him just so I sort of knew where I was going, I guess. But yeah, there is an OBJ of this guy. He has a couple of different UV sets because I wasn't sure if you guys like paint directly on models or whatever. But one UV set is like super square. Where is he? So yeah, this sort of stuff. But like as you can see, if you're painting this directly in Photoshop, they look circular and nice here, but they're sort of warped here. It's because I've forced UVs to how they're not really supposed to be. I mean, they are for games, it's fine. And if you can paint and you can control your paint directly on the model, it's fine as well. Like this here, for example, I pulled this out after I painted it, so I left that on the other side, so I could do that too, just to sort of demonstrate it. But yeah, I guess I'll just start painting over this dude if I have. How much like time do I have?
They finish at 4:30, so another hour.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably might not finish him, but should get a bit done. Yeah, I'll just start this new texture. And actually, you can see it. I have Photoshop.
Do you want us to try and fix the pressure thing for you, or
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, that would probably be good. Stuff working. I think, yeah, that's right. Or maybe just cheap.
Yeah.
Also, I've solved this thing before. Oh, that thing, yeah, that annoying thing. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't used it for a while. Something like that. I do it all the time. Ah, yeah.
It's like getting used to it.
Yeah. It's like the bane of my existence. They could just be just models. I don't know, something's... It's like slow. I think I've used this show before. Is it like stuff on like a straight line? Yeah, no, it's not. I'm just trying to say. Yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's good, thanks. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. So I'll just like really quickly go through okay, cool. So first thing I do when I paint is I block out colors. So I'm just going to mask off. That's awful. Cool. So I'm just going to mask off areas for middle, and middle, like I like to start with quite a dark desaturated color. Like middle is property, like it can get super saturated and like reflections and stuff, but I'm just going to turn this down. It's sort of like whatever you want to do. Like actually, for this example, I'll go with a different sort of color base. So I'm going with like a warmer one. And when I'm blocking out colors, I just want the paint to occlude like everything. So if I paint here, it's going to go right through. I just need to crank this up, turn that into a hard brush. Like that, cool. That's good for metal, I guess. Leather is sort of saturated, can be quite saturated, and it doesn't really get super dark. So I'm going to start it like at a midpoint, and like when I paint, I'm always looking at this. Like it's always good to know how saturation is to the right, how saturated something is, how desaturated something is, and how dark and how light it is. So for leather, I sort of go like a mid-grey, maybe slightly lower than a mid-grey, and yeah, maybe like that. Sort of saturated brown, that's cool. And this guy has some cool UVs. He's like, he's mirrored like two ways. So I paint here and he goes in every single corner. That saves me a lot of time, and since it's something really small, with like not much detail, you can sort of get away with that. You don't really want to do it on huge things, unless it's like a wheel or something with spokes. You could probably get away with that as well, because it's quite a symmetrical thing anyway. So I'm going to do these like gold, and gold is quite warm in its shadows, and then it gets almost yellow in its reflected sort of state. So I'm just going to start with like a, that's pretty good. It's like a, maybe down slightly, sort of like a warmish, browny. Yeah, sure, that's good. And wood, let's start him. Wood, you can sort of go anywhere really, like, it can be any color, like, maybe I'll do like a, I don't know, like a green, why not? Cool. Yeah, so once I've done this, all of these arrows, like they all share the same UV. I'll just make these guys like a different wood, just cause. And these like quiver head thingies, I'm not sure what you call them, guides, I don't know. I know they can be quite light, because cloth, well, this sort of feathery stuff lots of light passes through that sort of material, like if I'm going to think about it in that sense. So it's good. Another thing, oh no, it's good. Bleed sedate. It's cool. Yeah. So now that I've got my color flats, what I would do is save this out. Let's call it shields. Retexture. Cool. Then I come into Photoshop. I've baked out these maps already, so I can just do it super quick. So I've got a object normal, which is like crazy funky rainbow, and ambient occlusion. And because like I've mirrored parts of this model, like you'll see that like this, it'll either be this one or this one. It's going to be out of place because for the shield, these guys here share the same UV, and because they share the same UV and they're also on a mirrored surface here, it's going to bake in ambient occlusion to like this side, and then it's going to put it here. It's going to look like really ugly and janky, but it's alright because I get a lot of other information out of it, and the stuff is like really easy to paint over. So anyway, let's open up the texture, the color flats. This one. Cool. And what I'm gonna do is a really handy shortcut in Photoshop. Like if your document is the same size, you can just shift it over and just hold shift and then release click, and that didn't work. Let's try it again. Oh, it's because I shifted it, sorry. Yeah, so this will work now. So just hold shift, bam. It's right where you want it. Same with this one. If I hold shift, let go of click, bam. So I'll turn that guy off for now, and I basically want to go into the channels of this object normal, and I'm looking for any sort of top-down direction. So for this, it's this one here, because I know like this is one of the metal rings on the shield, and it's cranking some like really bright spot up top. So usually, I think it's blue randomly, but I've got a green channel. It's either in your green or your blue for like your top-down lighting from your object normal. So I'll take this guy, copy him, paste him, hide that. Don't really need that now. Normally, like, well, actually, I don't know. I'm pretty messy in Photoshop. Like, I don't really name many layers because I find myself not really using Photoshop now because I just paint everything in Blender. But so set this guy to overlay. And it's going to keep your values of your color flats and project that light information over top of it. So you'll see soon when I reload this texture, you'll see a bit of a change. But for the most part, you don't want this like you don't want that guy cranking like 100%. You want him like down maybe like 60. I don't know. That looks alright. Just play around with it, and then your ambient occlusion. If you guys don't know what an ambient occlusion map is, it basically casts a light and bakes in like sort of your cracks and your crevices and like shadows in the model and stuff. So anything that's sort of hidden or attached, it'll give it like a nice, like this for example is where one of the leather straps attaches, so it gives it like a nice shadow underneath where it's connecting. It just, I don't know, it can be good. I don't always bake out a ambient occlusion, but I did just for this purpose. Multiply, you can either overlay or multiply it. It doesn't make too much difference, I think. Like if I crank this guy on overlay, it's just a little bit brighter. Actually, yeah, we'll go with overlay. So yeah, that's good. You can see like if I have it at 100%, it starts getting like a nice blur in there for me, like a darker blur, but I'll shift it like here. So this is probably where I'd start. Yeah, that's good. Except this guy's gotten a bit bright, but that's alright. Let's just save him out. Go for gold. Shield retexture. We use PNGs at work just because they're super small and they don't really have bad compression. Like they're pretty good. Definitely don't use a JPEG because those things are just horrible. But yeah, if you're like texturing for games or whatever, PNG, TGA is good as well. It's just slightly bigger in file size. Tiger. Cool. So if I hit reload, bam, you start to get a lighting direction, and like I've barely done any painting at the moment. Although I can actually. So one thing I've noticed. One thing I've forgotten to do. Okay, yeah. So the lighting's coming from the bottom, and that's because I didn't invert the green channel. So if I just come back in here and hit invert, bam, that's what I want. And if I save that again, and hit reload, it should, once it saves, there you go, bam. So it's from the top now. That's a pretty good starting point. And from there, I would start. Usually, I pick off like materials, like I'll just paint it by material. Sometimes though, like I'll block in, like if I don't know, let's just start with this wood here. So because I don't want like a high value contrast with this wood, I probably wouldn't go much lower than like here for like recesses. So like, I don't know, what's that? It's probably like a 0.4 or something. Actually, before I do that, I'll just get some color information. So I don't know, I guess if this thing was like out in the sun or something, probably want like a yellow sort of light up here. I'm just gonna crank that down. Yeah, cool. Often, yeah, I'll pick like the brightest sort of value I want, and I'll work down. So this is probably the brightest like I want this surface to hit. So from there, I'll just come in. That's pretty good, I guess. And I'll sort of dither it down because if you're doing like a top-down lighting, you always want like a sort of gradient going from top to bottom. It just makes things a little bit more interesting. So like that's pretty good, I guess. Something like that. And I can always come back in and sort of smooth these strokes out later, which is something like you don't want to get too caught up in when you're just starting to paint it really. Okay, yeah, and so that's sort of keeping the value that it gave me. Alright, yep, so there, I'll say that's fine for the wood. Then I come in, start blocking the sky out. When I baked this last night, I didn't mark these edges sharp down here, so like normally this is slightly wrong, like I have to come in and just fix this. That's alright. I'm just gonna take that off. Cool, yeah, so one important thing to notice as well is like I didn't take occlude off, so like I had this masked, so it's only going to apply paint to here, but if you notice, this is something, I'm pretty bad for this, like you'll be like painting here and you're like, oh yeah, look, that's cool, and you'll come around and it's actually putting paint information on like everything else. And that's because like when you block out your color flats, it's pretty important to turn these back on. This just occludes geometry. And there's that weird ambient occlusion thing I was talking about. So like it baked a nice sort of shadow in here, but because it's mirrored, you just can't deal. So we can make that work. If I like mask this off, you can just make it a bit more broad. Usually like you mirror things like this in games because often you just can't justify having like unique detail for every single piece because often things are quite small. So like this, for example, I mirrored this because I'm just not really saving any. First of all, I'm like losing time. Like when you're at a studio, you want to be cranking things out pretty far, well anyway really, like if you're working on a project and other people are depending on you, like production time is money basically, so the faster you can crank stuff like this out, the better. So I'll just come back to this middle here, and I'll just take this value, and that's a mid. So like, I guess mid is alright for this top piece because it's directly hitting like my imaginary light source. Like I'm painting with a light source that's sort of cranking right down on this thing. So mid's alright for the top point, but I'll probably make it a little bit higher. Like I'll probably crank it up to like here or something. Anyway, let's just and any like recesses like this, I'll just paint in a super dark color. You'll notice like this is like super muddy. This is why you model to the texture afterwards, because you know how much you can break it. Like I didn't account for like this piece here has no UV space. Like if I look in here, but no. If I look in here, yeah, it's just a flat line because I modeled to the texture afterwards. So that's one thing like you got to be careful with if you're pulling and pushing things in ways that you shouldn't, just that you don't break it. So like when I paint up here, it basically has one vertex to share that color information, so it's just going to shove it right down. But that's alright because it's pretty small, so it won't make much of a difference. I just have to be careful where I end this paint. I guess that's alright. Cool. Yeah. So when I'm like blocking out and going in more for metal, like often I'll grab a color like this, might crank it down into like a really dark saturated one, and start thinking about reflective values and stuff like that. What actually makes it metal? So one way to demonstrate reflectance in metal is to have a patch of value right, like a patch of high contrast. So, for example, and you put that right next to each other. So, like, I don't really like that yellow. I'm just gonna take it to more of a brown. Yeah, that's alright. I'm gonna make this just super dark. So I'm painting him up, and then what I want to do is grab like let's just do like a blue, just because I can. I'll put him right down, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the add brush, and that's going to build it up like right here, so just crank him in there. Okay, so this is pretty extreme, but it's alright, because after I do that, I sort of just use the add brush to grab like a value that I want, so like that's sort of cool, I can work with that, and then I'll just blend that back in. Sometimes blending is faster if you switch it to a soft brush, like I can paint in some texture later, so I'll just go over this. Blend him up. And I'm already starting to get like a, I don't know, a sort of metallic surface, but I can work that in a lot more. You have to be careful that you don't like blow out values where they're like not supposed to be, so this isn't too bad, I think. So he's like hitting the midpoint here. That as long as like this reflection with metals, you sort of, it sort of depends, but like generally you don't want the reflection to be a higher value than like your sort of top point. So it's looking a bit weird at the moment because I haven't done anything to this surface, so like I would come in and I'll just use my add brush again, but maybe put it on a sharp, make my brush sharp. And just build up. Oh, that's super bright. You don't really, like, whenever you're texturing, just a good general rule of thumb is you don't want to hit pure white, like very often. Like, he's pretty close. That's probably alright, but I mean, I would keep that to a very small area, because metals tend to have hot spots where light hits them. So I'll take like that color there and I just bleed them out. And like I sort of like this look here going on, this little curve in here, so often I'll play to that and I might use my brush and just build a bit more of that in. But that's sort of like, if you can do that as you're painting and you don't really have to think about it, like, it's good. It's the way to go. Like, there was an interesting talk by someone who worked at Blizzard, I think, and he was talking about try to be confident in like your brush strokes and just everything that you're doing, because if you're not confident in them and you're trying to labor something, it sort of comes out as a visual mumble. So like, practicing definitely makes perfect. This is also, I mean, this is pretty good, but if I'm looking up here and I'm comparing like these two, it's a huge jump, which is good for metal, but since this is like the high point, and I want to try to get a gradient going from top to bottom, I'll probably brighten this up like a tad, like maybe that is okay. Yeah, that's alright. Just get him along there. Sometimes you can lose like the thing that makes a reflection is like the shadow in the reflection often. So like sometimes I'll lose like my dark color next to my highlight, and I'll just, I don't know, I'm constantly sort of reworking and repainting as I paint. Sometimes like I could paint this piece and I don't know, I just might not be happy with it, and I'll just put a fresh layer over and start again. Like this sort of stuff here looks sort of cool. Like, I don't know, I like that sort of stylistic brush pattern, so I'll try crank that a bit more in there maybe. And then like the finished sort of piece, once you've got like, so this is like your first reflection, I guess, and then you can do interesting sort of secondary reflections. So because the light's coming smack bang there, I might grab like a warm color, like I don't know, like, yeah, yellowy, sort of dark. Because it's add, I want to start dark. Just very lightly change them to a soft brush. Just lightly start from the middle, like, and bleed that out a little bit. It just makes it a bit more interesting. Maybe something like that. Because now you're sort of defining the surface, like this ring, if it was to have highlights on it, they would probably come straight down in that sort of a fashion. This, you just sort of, I guess, learn this from painting and looking at reference, but that's sort of like what you're trying to achieve with your secondary reflection. It's a bit soft, like I'll probably actually, better way to do it is just to crank this guy right down. Just have to be careful of like, so I'm not going to use the add brush because he's already quite high in like the value, and I want this guy to be the brightest. So if I just select this guy, this is, yeah, just make him nice and strong. It's a bit much, you still want to add. maybe just bleed him out. Just go. Yeah, trying to make like, if you go back and yeah, that's alright. Always like when you start sort of big, you can always come in and like, if you notice I got a smaller brush and I was just trying to, I don't know, play around with the shape of this a bit more, but I'm still not really happy with it. Probably should be a bit more saturated. I'm just going like ridiculous with the colors, by the way. Like, I'm not really following anything, just to sort of demonstrate. You can sort of go wherever you want with these. Anyway, yeah. The finishing sort of touch to like a metal thing like this. Really don't like that. Just gonna shift that in. Is wearing the edges down. So like, this is where the add brush, I mean, you run it where, I think this is their workflow anyway. Metals in their highlights, like when they're pure highlights, are often desaturated, so like I won't come and crank this guy to the right corner, I'll just leave him here, and I'll just start going over, turn him down, just like coming in. This is what really sort of sells metal, like when you have like little hot spots like this that describe the edges. I'll just come down, just sort of go crazy really. Sometimes like, oh yeah, so you get this quite often, like if you're not paying attention, and I wasn't paying attention. So like you should really be checking where your edges are of your model. So it's quite easy when you're hand painting stuff, because you can fake a lot of stuff. Like for example, if I wanted to have a dent up here, I mean, I'll just straight up paint it in and I wouldn't model it, because it's just a waste of space really. Just don't want it, just get rid of it. Yeah, I'd go like that. And that's pretty good. And then little indentations, you want to think about where the light's hitting, and it's hitting in that recess. Bam, like that. Things that you have to be careful with though, like if you're mirroring, like if I look across, it's going to be on the other side, so like that's where you can shoot yourself in the foot when you mirror UVs. Like, you have to be careful what sort of detail you're putting here, because it is going to be mirrored and it can start to look really symmetrical from really far away if you're not careful. Yeah, that looks sort of better. I'm always, when I paint, I sort of constantly revisit areas and just paint them over with, I don't know, the knowledge of the material I'm painting, until I sort of get something right. So like, this looks really bad, because I don't like reflecting blue and then like a really strong orange. Probably would look better if I just dulled that orange, maybe to this similar blue. So I'm just gonna plug in this color blending mode and just go like that. Yeah, sure. That looks a bit better. And I'll probably dull, like this blue is pretty super intense. So like I'm really liking that a lot more. Anywho, and then I'll come back and probably make these stronger. Like if I sort of look from afar, these edges here can probably be like more worn, and also they should really be hitting the edge of the model. So I'll just come in here and do that again. Bleed that out to the edge, and then maybe take this color here, because it's, I guess it's sort of cool mix of the really dull sort of greens. I take him and I just shove him like right down and put the brush mode on add again, and just come through. really like define that edge and that shine. And that's, yeah, so from there I'd probably like, I'm always moving back and forth between these. I often get carried away and I'll like leave this, I'll just finish this. Anytime you can sort of pump up scratches like that is pretty cool in metal, because again, like this is like super bright value right next to like a really dark value, so you're getting that high contrast in, which is what really sells metal. Yeah, and this could probably be, it's alright. I might just take it in. Yeah, sure. I'm going to move on from that because we'll be there all day. So yeah, once I've got that, I'll sort of take these, pick them, and then just start applying them to like the other metals. So this piece down here, I'd follow like a similar sort of workflow because it's the same sort of shape. Whereas this thing here, same workflow, just different surface definition. So like along here, this reflection here is called like a Fresnel, and it's sort of like the reflection of a metal or any objects that have a Fresnel. It's sort of like when they're on their side, it's almost like a natural like rim light that sort of comes in. So like I would take this color, and once you sort of suss this for one piece and you get the look that you like, it does become a lot faster to sort of just crank this through, because you sort of, you know what you're trying to aim for now. And then because like this guy, I'll probably like replug this color. I'll just turn them down a bit. And here, like this like one thing to like sort of, I guess, take note of is like when you're painting, like you're overlaying different maps and stuff, your color flats can get lost sometimes. So like, and they can get a lot darker than usual. Like this, I probably wouldn't often paint this low to black. Like it's just a bit too much. I mean, that's just my preference. Some people probably do, and they probably really get a kick out of painting that dark, but it's alright. You sort of don't really want that, even with metal. Like you want to keep, you don't often want to come right up to white, and you don't want to get right down to black. So it's come here, and because this guy is going to be hitting our like imaginary light source, I'm gonna crank the add brush on him like super soon. Yeah, it's alright, I guess. Just put this base color on here. Cool. Yeah, so this is really gonna sell this bottom piece when I take that color and I just crank it down. Chuck on add, and yeah, just build this up. Metal, like, well, actually any texture really, you're sort of building it up. So that's sort of a nice value for the light to hit, I think, something like that. And now I'm going to paint in like the hot spot of the metal, which is what sells metal when you have super bright hot spots, and they're often quite small. So I take him, like that's pretty good. I could take him out a little bit more, but that's alright. For like demonstration purposes, like that, and yeah, I think I'll move on. I'll just crank basically any recess that is heading up. I want to paint light on, so like I'll come in here and define this a bit more. I'm not even using the add brush, but that's fine. And as I'm doing this, like I'll pick out hotspots. Hotspots usually in middle or like on corners and stuff where light catches a lot. So like I might come in and just crank that guy up a lot more. Same with like here. Cranking him up a ton. And maybe even start playing around with like another reflection here since the light's hitting it, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So like, I don't know, something like that maybe. Blend that out. That's alright, it's sort of cool. And just come down and look at like where my edges and where I want to define this. Yeah, I guess that's cool. And because like this guy is another recess, he's hitting the light, I'll just grab my add brush and just really crank him up. Yeah. I'm not gonna like spend too much time blending and polishing this, just because I want to try and get through as much as I can. But this wood, for example, just sometimes like when you're painting on the model and you go over an edge, it can sort of bleed straight down. So I will just fix that up. Like that, yeah. So, cool. And wood. Basically, I'm just going to take like this. I already defined this as like my lowest value that I want to go for this wood, whereas the middle stoops a little bit lower. So I'm just going to grab maybe that, and I'll start like blocking in some like detail of the grain that I want. So because I've got my colours sussed, that's really good. I'll just save that so I don't lose it. So I'll come down, that's alright. I'm thinking about like the big planks at the moment, and then I'll like sort of think about the grain. So just straight up draw over this. It's always more helpful to paint like if you've got lines to follow, I guess. I've darkened him up, but he'll probably get lighter again after I've sort of defined that anyway. Yeah. So once I've got that, usually what I'll do is this is like wood you still want to be really subtle, like it depends what sort of wood you're painting, but like if I'm doing something like that, like I don't want too much value difference between these grains in here. Like I can add like a highlight to the edge of them to sort of make them pop from far away. But when you get close, like you don't really want that because wood doesn't really react that way. Like this here, I mean, it probably could be like a tiny bit lighter, but it's alright. And like when I was doing this, I sort of plugged some warmer colours into the shadows, just because it makes it more interesting. Like one of my workmates sort of taught me was like, you can just sort of, like, you just go crazy with color. Like, you just plug it in wherever you want. Like in this middle here, I've got some like brown. Like I just straight up color picked from this wood and just added it over the top, just as a nice sort of finish. Which could be rust, or it just could be, I don't know, just color share. Like anytime you can sort of plug colors from one material to the other, you're always going to have like a nicer sort of cohesive look. And the same thing with UVs. Like I chucked some damage on the ends, just because I was just being wary of. I didn't want to put like huge gashes here because you're just going to have like a Rorschach sort of pattern going on, and yeah, you have to be careful. Anyway, let's go back to text pane. So I might grab like this guy here and just paint in, mask it off. Just painting where I think one grain could go, and I mean he gets darker down here, so just gotta be careful not to go too much over. Like that, bam. And then another grain, and because this is like right up top, yeah, you're keeping this value like very close, and you can just do stuff like this, just big broad sort of strokes to define where it is. Like this probably isn't a smart idea because like it's mirrored right against itself, so I might take this pattern and keep it on this side. So like that maybe, that's alright I guess, yeah. And you're basically just building it up, like same with like the middle, like once you know like your material definitions, and you just sort of always look where your value and saturation sliders pinging off. You're sort of good to go and start like doing this sort of stuff. Yeah, this has gotten a lot brighter, but it sort of looks cool. Like I'm sort of liking this, so I might just keep that. I can always take this color and like plug it back up here if I wanted to blend it in. Want to blend it in more. Anyway, once I've got like the grains sort of sorted, like once I'm starting to get something I like that sort of looks cool. I don't know, it's just like a random, don't even know, not really thinking about it. Crank that up, and I don't know, this is starting to look interesting to me. Like I like these shapes that are forming, so what I'll do is I'll grab this guy, make sure he's still like this value, the lowest value, like I don't want to go below that, and so I'm just sort of adjusting it now. I'll just come back up and strengthen that. Sometimes I'll paint wood like a lot more subtle than this. I won't actually go back over and outline the grains. And other times I will, I guess, just depends how I'm feeling, maybe, yeah. Yeah, but once you start to get that and you've like really get your art forms blocked out and cranking, then I'll be thinking about the light. But it's like probably a bit too much contrast actually between here and here, so like I'm just gonna dial it down. Maybe just dab him on there. Maybe like there's alright. There you go, that's a bit better. Cool. And once I've got that, then I'd grab some highlights. I guess it depends like what sort of wood you're painting. Normally, if it's like a glossy wood, your highlights are like super desaturated and like white almost. Just for colour's sake, I'm just gonna put some yellow in because I think it's gonna look sort of cool. Yeah, let's just do it. I'll just highlight, like, I'll edge these now. Just not as intense as the middle, but enough to sort of notice and pick out far away. Just like that. And seems like sort of laggy, but yeah, this is probably way too much now. It is way too much. Like, I'll probably grab like a dollar value, sorry, plug him in there. Same with like that. It's just a bit much. But something like really cool you can do after you sort of suss this stuff out, sort of like a polish thing, after you've blended your colors and stuff, is I'd grab the overlay and plug in some nice yellow probably. This is probably going to give me like a nice highlight here. Crank them down, you don't want that too like hard, so crank that back down to a smooth brush, and yeah, it's quite nice like that. Yeah, cool. Like, I'll be happy with that to sort of leave it for now and go to the rest of my model and start painting over. Yeah, I don't know, it's sort of cool. Like, I guess this is like I don't know, just a airy wood. I don't know what you would call that, slightly green wood. And then my last material, this leather. Leather is like a bit like, actually like most things when you're hand painting, I guess, have a little bit of edging. Like you want to define stuff like that because you're purely working on value and color to help see your object from far away. So like seeing this ring and seeing like looking back on this now, this could probably have a stronger highlight on this little buckle thing here, but it's all good. Yeah, so leather. This isn't looking too bad, like the color fit with like the overlay and whatnot. I'll probably just pick like a nice yellow again and just start edging it, and maybe even pumping it up a bit since the light is hitting this. You want to show that. Maybe just feather it off. That's not bad. You can start to get texture in there if you change this to a hard brush. And maybe crank it up just a tad. Often, like at work, not so much at home because my tablet isn't that great at home, but at work, I don't really change like the pressure strength of my brush. It's just always at 1. Just because you're getting like the full amount of information that you picked onto the thing, but it's alright. Cool. Yeah, like that's alright. I'll probably edge this now. Like I'd go around and just like rough up. Something like this. It's almost. It's looking sort of metal, like sort of metallic, because this is like super dark right here. So that's something I'll just fix afterwards. Like once I'm happy with that, then I might plug this color in because it's not bad. I'll just paint him in here. And then with like stuff like leather, like wood too, like you want to show us construction history, so like you'd want to, I didn't do this on the other one, but you'd probably want to have some nails somewhere to show that it's actually sort of attached to that. Same with like this here, you'd want nails somewhere. That's sort of stuff I save to last usually. Same with like leather, if it's stitched or something, like you just want to go in and just paint it. And the more practice you sort of get with this, the easier it is to sort of imagine like this. If you notice this guy, he's mirrored down here because he doesn't really need unique information. block in some like really rough stitching or something. You'd want to paint in your own sort of ambient occlusion, like where it connects, like in here, just to sort of help sell it. Yeah. So then from far away, when you're sort of looking at it, it's not bad. Yeah, and like one last thing, like if I'm trying to paint some extra lighting information, like on this guy, what did I do? I just added like a little bit of the shield ring to this. In hindsight, like I probably would have not mirrored this across because it would have been cool. I only thought about this afterwards, but it would have been cool to actually add damage from those arrows in here. But of course, like if I was to do that, if I wanted to, it's gonna appear on the other side. So like it's a missed opportunity, but I mean, it's all good. Like the Blender, you can actually re-UV super easy, and you can just rebake UVs. Like if I wanted to do that, it wouldn't be too difficult to do that. In fact, I'll probably just rip off these two faces, ship them somewhere else, and then just rebake the map, and it'll just rebake to whatever. Blender's like really powerful for doing stuff like that. Anywho, yeah, I might grab this guy. Yeah, I might grab him and hit on multiply. I don't use multiply often, but maybe just something like that. Nice green shadow or something. It's probably a bit much. Too saturated. Just drop it there. That's good. Yeah, something like that maybe. I don't know. Yeah, that's that anyway. Hopefully that was like somewhat helpful. I don't know. I just thought rambling on while I paint and like just what I'm thinking about and like how to define materials and stuff could be useful. But that's pretty much my workflow. I cranked that dude out and I don't know, it was probably 2 hours texturing and like an hour and a little bit mobbing and UV. So that's the sort of speed you sort of want to crank it. So, I mean, yeah, if you're knocking out like 1 to 2 assets at work, they're going to be happy with you. But yeah, that's alright. Any questions, anything like that? Any questions about Hamilton? No? Can't sell Hamilton. That's right. Yeah.
Cool, thank you, Josh.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, that's just leave it over. That's like really cool, and like you don't know, like even if you just like it's not that hard just to set that up, like without yeah, like this is like super cool, like this guy for example. I didn't show this just because I'm running out of time. Like if I wanted to take this face and like shrink him down, this is what's really powerful. Actually, before I do that, you have to like define like a new UV set. So like I'll do that, and then on this new UV, go like that, and I'll just give them a new texture to back to, so pumpkin. You just assign the old texture. So I assign the old like pumpkin thing and the old UV map. So just start cranking on this guy, and then you just hit great textures. And it's pretty good. Yeah, and it's, yeah, so like, we do that a lot. Like sometimes you'll get, if someone's modeled it, and like one of our animation people often like have to redo these, but we can. It's like just super fast. Yes. I haven't touched mine for like, I just focus on my right now. But